In February of 2001, the second set in the Invasion block, Planeshift, was released. The set tells the story of the wrathy overlay of Dominaria as Phyrexian's main assault on the plane begins. In fact, that's what the set's swirly symbol is meant to represent.
That makes sense to me.
The whole story can be explained by reading the Planeshift novel by J. Robert King. Failing that, here is a story summary. The wrathy overlay begins as Dominaria's coalition forces are recovering from the battle at the Caves of Koilios. Sensing the urgency of the moment, Urza and the other 8 Titans all dispatch troops to strategically significant locations across the globe. Urza sends the Weatherlight and his Metathrand army to Urborg, where the Rothi stronghold now stands. Inside, Krovax cannibalizes Sabotavak for her failures in Phyrexian's first wave of attacks. Freyles, for example, sends Eladamri, Lensivi, and their forces to Keld. There, they join forces with the Keldan warlord Aster, along with the Skyshroud elves who were transplanted there by the overlay. And the Serpentine Planeswalker, Tevesh Set, sends the powerful dragon Daragaz, along with a great number of others to defend what remains of Shiv. Before the dragon departed, however, Zat gave Daragaz a little history lesson about the primeval dragons and how dragons used to rule over the land. The 9 Planeswalkers that make up the Titans, Urza, Bolivar, Daria, Freyles, Carmador Guff, Christina of the Woods, Taster of Rebaya, Tevesh Set, and Lord Windgrace, then travel to Phyrexia itself, their Titan armors in tow, with plans to destroy the plane with soul bombs, which are explosives of immense power that can only be fueled by capturing a potent enough soul. The fight on Phyrexia goes rather well until the antagonistic Tevesh Set betrays the group by murdering 2 of the Titans, Christina of the Woods and Daria. Urza had expected Tevesh Set betrayal. In fact, he counted on it and used it as an excuse to activate the self-destruct mechanism in Sat's Titan armor, killing the treacherous Planeswalker and draining his essence to fuel the soul bombs. Meanwhile, back on Dominaria, the Urborg terrain is getting the best of the Metathrand as the army gets caught in quicksand. Thankfully, help arrives, though it arrives in the form of the Lich Lord Dralnu and his legion of undead. As common enemies form unlikely alliances, Dralnu informs the Metathrand General Agnet of an underground city in which the Lich gives fallen warriors a second chance, and the 2 armies agree to fight side by side against the Phyrexians. While things are looking up in Urborg, Keld is not faring quite so well. The prophecy of the Keldan Twilight proves true, as all of the fallen heroes entombed in the Keldan necropolis come back to life. Unfortunately, they do so not to fight for Keld, but for Phyrexia. A chaotic and lopsided battle ensues atop a frozen lake. The lunacy reaches its peak as Tajamin, the keeper of the sacred Book of Keld, struck one of the undead Kelds with her sacred cudgel, causing a massive energy surge that triggered a volcanic eruption beneath the ice, shattering the lake's frozen cover and causing an epic flood that swept away not just the Phyrexians, but the elves and Keldans alike. It's then that the true Twilight prophecy came to light as the mythical Keldan longboat, the Golden Argosy, emerged from the lake's depths and saved many of the drowning elves and Keldans, only to take them to their next battle on the fetid shores of Urborg. Speaking of Urborg, Aghanet is now in Dralnu's underground city to forge their newfound alliance. While he's there, the Battle of Urborg above ground is faring poorly. The Weatherlight heads to nearby Zalfir to enlist the formidable Minotaur warriors of Talrum, only to discover that Teferi had phased the entire area out of the time stream. The crew then turns to Herlun for help. There, they find the Phyrexians have ravaged the land and were putting every last Minotaur there through the mentally and physically scarring process that Tangarth himself underwent while imprisoned on Wrath. Feeling that he can redeem himself even if just a little for his own capture and torment, the Weatherlight's first mate put up a fierce defense. The Weatherlight destroys the Phyrexians' mutation plans, and in doing so, saves much of the Herlun population. In the aftermath, the Herlun natives bowed down before Tangarth and adopted him as their champion, even rubbing ash on their bodies to mimic his own shameful scars as a sign of respect. Now feeling redeemed, Tangarth enlists a number of Herlun warriors to join the Weatherlight in battle on Urborg as the ship makes its return to the island. Aghanet and Dralnu too return to the fray, and soon after, the battle for the southern part of Urborg is won. The troops begin to head north to the stronghold, but something seems wrong. Agnet feels himself dying and assumes he's caught the Phyrexian plague. While being treated aboard the Weatherlight, it comes to light that the Mediterranean general's sickness is not Phyrexian, but rather one caused by Dralnu, who has plans to take over the Mediterranean army. Agnet relinquishes command to the Herlorn leader, Grizzlegom, who mercy kills the general, then kills Dralnu. In the skies above Urborg, another battle of sorts begins. The Predator, the Wrathy flagship that came over in the overlay, intercepts the Weatherlight. Unlike the last couple of times when the two skyships clashed, things don't go quite so well for the Predator, as the Weatherlight has received a number of upgrades since then. Despite heavy damage to the ship, the Predator crew, led by Griven Elvek, manages to board the Weatherlight as the crews engage in hand-to-hand combat. Tangarth, seeking to exact revenge for what the Predator commander did to him, provides Greven with the business end of his axe. Soon thereafter, the commander's lifeless corpse is thrown overboard along with the wreckage of the destroyed enemy skyship. The battle, however, is not yet won as Ertai appears, having watched everything unfold while cloaked in invisibility. The powerful mage, now disfigured and fighting for the Phyrexians, abducts both Gerard and Squee, the three of them teleporting into the stronghold. There, they meet their abandoned former crewmate, and the new Evankar of Wrath, Krovax. The vampire promises Gerard that Yawgmoth could resurrect Hannah for him, but only if he agrees to join Phyrexia. To prove such a feat possible, Krovax kills Squee, only to grant him the unnatural ability to come back from the dead. In the meantime, Daragas has traversed the globe, resurrecting 3 of the primeval dragons, Rith, Dromar, and Treva, at the cost of many draconic lives. Rith reveals to Daragas that he himself is a primeval dragon, and the 4 plunge themselves into a tar pit, awakening the final primeval, Croesus. Croesus then resurrects the other 4, thus completing their chain of power. The dragons go on the offensive, attacking Phyrexians and Dominarians alike. It's not until Daragas attacks the Weatherlight does this change. Karn succeeds in talking some sense back into the dragon. Realizing the horrors the dragons are performing, Daragas plunges himself into an active volcano. His sacrifice breaks the chain, allowing each of the other dragons to be defeated, and ending their primeval threat once and for all, even if it meant wrecking the Weatherlight in the process. Back on Phyrexia, Urza finds himself more and more awestruck by the gruesome beauty that is Yawgmoth's domain. The Lord of the Wastes feeds on this increasing adoration and manages to get Urza to join his side, making the Planeswalker destroy the Master Soul Bomb that was supposed to trigger all of the others. When confronted by Taysir, Urza activates the kill switch on the Planeswalker's suit just as he had done previously to Tevesh Set. Yawgmoth then shows Urza Mishra, his long-lost brother, saying that he has been continuously tortured in Phyrexia since the days of the Brothers' War on Argoth. Now set on joining Yawgmoth and supporting the Phyrexians, Urza bows before his new master. Back in the Wrathy stronghold in Dominaria, Krovax reveals to Gerard how the Mediterranean general Agnet and the dragon Daragas both fell to evil temptations before delivering the heavy blow by informing him that the headstrong Urza had also succumbed to the allure of Yawgmoth. Hearing this, Gerard steps through a portal that leads directly into the 9th sphere of Phyrexia, where he joins Urza on bended knee before the plane's Dark Lord. Dominaria's saviors turned, the Weatherlight destroyed, and all hope seemingly lost, Karn emerges from the skyship's wreckage on Urborg, carrying the ancient and mysterious Thran Tome. The Golem now knows what must be done to save the world. And that's how this chapter of the story ends. But it's not the end of the story of Planeshift, to be sure.
Tell us about it!
Consisting of 143 cards, the set continued Invasion's theme of multicolored cards and strategies. The set expands upon the kicker keyword that was introduced in the previous set by having the kicker cost being something besides just an additional amount of mana that is to be paid. Domain is also expanded upon.
So you're still master of your domain?
Yes! Yes, I am. Master of my domain.
Further, Planeshift introduced an unkeyworded mechanic colloquially known as gating, with which players return a permanent that shares a color with the card being cast to their hand, in exchange for a lower casting cost or higher power, such as the case with the 5-drop 7/7 Trampler, Shivan Worm.
The idea was, it's this kind of thing where, oh, well, it seems like a drawback, but if used cleverly, we had a lot of creatures with enter the battlefield effects and things. If used cleverly, this drawback can be used to your advantage. And this allowed you to get out bigger, multicolored creatures cheaper.
Planeshift also featured a number of cycles, 13 of them to be exact, such as the allied colored gaining creatures and tricolored dragon charms and lairs. And while the set includes no reprints, it does have a number of notable cards with Diabolic Intent, Draco, Flametongue Kavu, Lord of the Undead, Meddling Mage, Orum's Chant, Voice of All, and the aforementioned Shivan Worm. Key storyline characters, Tangarth, Talarum Hero, and Ertai the Corrupted also get cards, as does, finally, the iconic Skyship Weatherlight, with all 3 cards being released both normally and in foil-only, alternate artwork form. And while on the topic of special cards, Planeshift's pre-release promo card also got special treatment. Like with Invasion's Raging Kavu promo, which is printed in Latin, Planeshift's pre-release Questing Feldegriff was printed... yeah, I'm not going to pronounce that, but it's in Ancient Greek. Just trust me on that.
Sorry.
So is Planeshift among your favorite Magic the Gathering sets? If so, let us know in the comments section below. And be sure to subscribe to Magic Untapped on YouTube and support us on Patreon for more great Magic the Gathering content.